Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Starbase Frequently Asked Questions. I don't even know what to call it anymore. This is basically us going through the frequently asked questions, giving my, thoughts and opinions on some stuff. Not too biased. I'm at least not tempting to do bias. I'm actually trying to be more in the mindset of what the developers are thinking and how things are running, as well as with my experience in the game industry, as well as a lot of information that was shared through Discord over time. This list is a fraction of what's been given out there, a good fraction, I should say, but it's still quite small compared to the more detailed information we have also been given on Steam, Reddit, and Discord, and even here and there on Twitter and things like that. So we're continuing on. Last time we were talking about some materials. These are the different materials and some of the names for them. This is more of when we go through the wiki later on, we can go through that. But what do the various process materials do? So I'm not going to even try to say some of these. The N-ite, I'm going to call it N-ite, and S-ite, are used to make different explosive types. For example, just simple C4/RDX explosives would be made out of primary by the nugrite, while the incendiary version would include the surite and karenite and haderite are all still looking for. The surite. Period. I'm horrible at commas and periods at times. The Karmite, Harderite are still looking for homes, but the alloys are one thing they are certainly being used to be expanded. Basically, the alloys themselves, the strength and stuff. So you probably noticed the weapon videos, the test videos. Some of those weapons were cranked up when they show videos and footage of things blowing up, things like that. They've admitted that that was one of the things they cranked up. It's not, this is a whole no man's skies, or saying something doesn't exist and screwing you with it. They just said they cranked them up to make it, more boom, boom, boom. They're not going to have a 10-minute fight, as a part of the trailer. They wanted something a little quicker. That being said, ship material makes a massive difference on how a fight lasts as well. If you're armored to the teeth with like the best reinforced materials out there, when that rocket hits the side of you, you literally pop out of your cockpit and turn around and blast the crap out of that guy in his little tin can. So you have to keep in mind that that's a huge part of the game. And even though they had cranked up some of the weapons for, more show and tell, kind of, that most of the ships, from our understanding, are using more base materials. That was a question I did bring up to them as well, and something you probably won't find in here anywhere. But I thought it was an important question on that sense. So it's not just that the weapons were dialed up, they were using the weakest armor on the ships in the sense. How are the resources distributed through space? Or distribution will be interesting and not equal. Ta-da. Probably the most expensive, rarest materials probably will not exist near the 5 mega stations, for example. Are there rare resources and materials worth fighting over? There's lots of materials in design, and some are quite valuable. Fighting for resources will be a thing for sure. Now, my question is how valuable, because we saw an estimate last episode that said materials would be 10 to 100 times more valuable. Is there materials worth 500 times more value, or 1,000 times more value, or just the 10 to 100 times? That's kind of, I wonder about that, Are there rare artifacts out in the world, things that can't be built at home? We have decided after early access launch, mostly likely involving the community somehow. So are there rare artifacts out in the world? So you remember how I had a vision that maybe one day there would be like the moon, and maybe there would be some sort of ET sort of thing going on. I'm not quite sure if that will exist. They have no NPCs at this time, nor there is any plans. But I wonder if there will be life, because if they bring life to the game, personally, I would like to see it in an organic form and not like a mechanical form like we are, because I don't want people basically destroying NPC constructs for easy material. Rather, I want them to shoot something more organic, something more, less laggy, but also something that maybe can mix their organic, their organic stuff into our ships. Maybe we have to do some research and things like that over time as well. But it's one of my thoughts and ideas, that I've had. Okay, on star bases or mega stations, Are you going to have Starbase as a start area? What does it do? So starting areas in early access will be a mega station or one of the areas within the probably 5 different spawn areas. You can then travel to anywhere and start exploring this universe. How do you do this without getting lost, by the way? Still looking for that one. Starting stations are controlled by dev factions, but player factions can also build their own stations, just not right at EA. Keep that in mind. So they can do it maybe a month later, 5 months later, I don't know, but it's not right at the launch. In general, we're just there to provide a safe haven and starting jobs for everyone. For everyone. Player factions will run their own course. Starting areas has many what we call mega stations. Only one of them was shown in the trailer. From what I understand, they said 5 of them. Mega stations come in different shapes. And here's one we have tested. So I think we saw like more of an L, or kind of maybe it was like an L, like a part of a cube that was cut in half kind of thing. It was kind of a shape. And then this is a rounded station. So this is different. So I guess this one, it's rounded and then it'll go out. So it'll turn into like a long rod over time when it expands. Okay, so what can you say about renting lots and stations? So there are areas within the starting area you can rent and build a small station parts in. So basically you can have your own little like rented station, like cubbyhole in a sense. You can't buy stations. Did I say that? I'm tired. You can rent sections inside of stations to build within. Renting is just one way to have a secure, nice lot with reasonable effort. Building your own station in the middle of nowhere outside a safe zone is proper hard mode. I think rents are negotiable with firepower, and if you build outside faction areas, there are no one to tell you what to do or protect you. So I'm still confused. I don't know if you could build a station, your own station within a safe zone, or if you can or can't, kind of. I don't know about that yet. This makes it a little confusing because it kind of sounds like in one way you need to go out there, but then if you do go out there, then you're kind of screwed at the same time. So it kind of mixes that up. So I'm not quite sure on that one yet. I don't think we've had that answer yet. I don't think the devs are even 100% sure either. At launch, you won't be able to create new stations. Of course, we already knew that. How many lots we want to one station? Okay, I don't know if I'm reading this wrong or it's a bit derpy. So how many lots we want to one station to hold is completely up to the station owner. But typically they start in range of a few hundred to a less than 1,000, but it's not a hard limit. So what does that mean when it's not a hard limit? Do you spawn players at different stations to prevent them from overusing that station? Do you increase the cost so let's just say, when it gets to 600 plots, it costs this much. If it gets to 700 plots, it costs this much. I don't quite know what they mean by not a hard limit, because a soft cap usually means there's something to make it so that they don't do it there. Can I control who has access to the station lot? Lot access is controlled by the owner. Will player-made megastations be able to spawn and despawn ships? Yes. Will player-made megastations be able to have bank? Yes. Will player-made megastations be able to pay out insurance claims? Undecided, but most likely something will be allowed. Remember, once again, insurance stuff is a little up in the air right now. Personally, I don't know what's going to happen. Devs, I don't think honestly know what's going to happen anymore because of insurance fraud. Will player-made stations be able to set their own prices for services? That's the plan, but nothing's done yet. Functionally, most likely it isn't right at the EA start there unless it's being added and named differently. Can I travel between stations without my own ship? You can program your own AI. We already have a public transport flying around and between space stations. Okay, so sometimes I'm reading this wrong. Sometimes it's probably me. Around and between space stations, which is autonomous. So this is interesting because it doesn't say within the station, but between space stations. We saw a video of it working around a space station, but this says it'll have ones flying between space stations as well. The stations are big and close enough to each other, and they look a bit different from each other. They are placed more like like the center of the safe zone, not on the edges. I'm sure we'll add easy enough info on public transportation and know how to travel to your friends. So this is probably not the case anymore. Sorry. This is probably not the case anymore. Originally, it sounded like it was just going to be a big bubble around the mega station and that was it, but it sounds like now it's going to be mini bubbles, and in fact that the mega station is probably going to be 5 minutes or so. It was the example given to us outside of the PvP area, so keep that in mind. Can you move a space station? Stations are stationary, so no. Indeed, stations are immovable as a whole entity, but in the other hand, it's perfectly possible to assemble station into pieces and move those pieces away. Trust me, I don't think anyone's going to be doing that, because it'd be insane amount of work, I'm saying. Will space stations orbit, drift, or move over time? No. Oh, this is undecided. I'm going to say no. For the physics and calculation costs and everything else, I just can't see it happening. It would also mean that, you know, things like asteroids would need to do something similar, and I can't see it happening. So, non-player interaction. So, will there be voice chat in the game, or will it be text chat? Text chat exists currently. Voice chat could probably be implemented if there's enough demand. Like I said, pretty sure it's the #1 demand now. We kind of think people use Discord and others nowadays more than in-game. So, you know, this is a good, perfect, reasonable explanation from the developers. You know, probably at the time he wasn't thinking about, you know, randomly walking to a stranger and saying, howdy, you know, you got anything for sale on the station, or boarding a ship and saying, give me all your gold and I'll let you live, kind of thing. So, you know, it's normal. Like, your clan and faction, no matter what, is probably going to use Discord or another voice communication system. But at the same time, it does make perfect sense that people would want something built in for that local communication when the time arises. So I think this is definitely now one of the, like I said before, I'm pretty sure it's the #1 requested feature, period. How will 2 players trade items? So we haven't made a decision how we want to handle player-to-player trading. You can drop stuff to other players already. You can also toss stuff towards each other. They can fly for some distance before the speed dampens out. So I suppose that's a form of trading. We will be implementing a trading interface once we've decided how we want the player trading to work. So the player trading is going to happen. I think even since then, Lori has even indicated that he would like the trading to happen at EA, but it's still not like 100% thing. But I think it's kind of like, it's sort of like one of those features they want to have before they launch EA, because it's kind of a needed feature. So I think it is going to happen. It'll probably just be a simple interface, hopefully like a double check interface as well for people who try to like pull things out or in and scam. Can we build vending machines for trade? I don't see why not, but I would guess someone would hack it or crack it open pretty fast. So I guess you could make a vending machine, say, on the station, but not, you know, this is a bit confusing because I can't see. There is going to be an auction system, and there is some sort of trade system like that. So this one always kind of confused me. So I guess if you're going to make your personal scripted, you know, trade station, you might have issues, but yeah, I don't know more outside of that. I also don't know how plots work with scripting. Like, can you have YOLO scripting on your plot on a mega station? If you can, how does it work when there's hundreds of people around? Like, who's running the script, especially when you're not around there? And what about all the hundreds of other plots that might have scripts on them? So I'm not quite sure if they're going to even allow that kind of scripting around. I just don't quite know how that's going to work. Is it PvP only, or also some PvE? PvP explore at this stage, at least. Personally, I think PvE exists quite a bit in this game, but a lot of people do not like my thoughts and my thoughts and ideas when I consider PvE. I consider PvE as player versus environment. Longest time there was PvM, which means player versus monsters, and as time went on, PvE basically got taken up as the player versus monsters, or some people even say enemy, but it's actually environment. And so I think the environment itself, mining, processing, building a factory, trading, all these things, are considered environment style play. But yeah, there is no NPCs that you interact with. Is there friendly fire? So pretty sure There was friendly fire the last time I checked, smiley. So the game does not different friendly to non-friendly fire, but there's safe zones. So safe zones, I guess you can't fire at all, but the idea is you can shoot your friends in the PvP zones. How do you plan on handling griefing? So my main plan was to turn all griefing into a gameplay. So I'd hire players to secret police who then would handle with this mess. I intend to turn the tide, but in the other hand, I'd imagine the devs think all the devs think that the same, still will they fail. But I'd say we have some pretty good ideas how to divide the war: risky business and safe business. Easiest being that allow killing only where it contributes to the experience. War zones, dangerous trade routes. We aim to offer relatively safe creative for those who value that over destruction and thrills. So it's a very interesting quote. It means that, literally maybe boarding a ship and hiding as a stowaway, wait till they're in a PvP zone, killing them and stealing them their ship. Is this kind of against their philosophy of a fair killing practice? And is this considered more like a griefing gameplay? And if so, what will be the punishment for that? Will I get punished for that? Will they try to make it harder to do that in the future? I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, but it sounds like they want to remove that toxicity of those people who just want to be the biggest dicks possible in a video game. So that's kind of cool. Will there be AIs in the game? Not at the moment, and none are planned for the EA launch. No AIs except the ones players manage to code themselves. So through the YOLO coding. What kind of group systems does the game have? Guilds? Players can form their own groups and factions. They say groups, but I'm interested in that because, we always thought factions only, but it does say groups. So is there another system where you can have like a group of 10 people all of a sudden? Is it permanent? Is it just temporarily, like in a MMO where you just invite them and, it's like, hey, let's do something as a group? We're implementing a traditional clan, company, and smaller group for starters. So it does say this is a separate. So there's a clan and company, which they've been calling factions, and then a smaller group for starters. So interesting. Is there a limit on how big a player faction can be? No planned limits, but obviously we need to make a scalable UI to support huge factions. Our first UI is pretty standard, so we need to upgrade that once factions grow. So, you might need something that does streaming as well, because let's just say you have 50,000 players in your faction. Opening the interface would be probably causing the server to lag a wee bit, grabbing all that data at once, but also causing your client to lag. So maybe it has to be some sort of streamed information, What differentiates dev faction, Empire Kingdom from a player faction? So a faction strength depends on how many members it has. If all the players team together, that's maybe what they want. But we'll still maintain the dev factions to upkeep neutrality and keep the game fun for everyone and provide a reasonable conflicts where each side can win. Dev factions are not immortal in any way, but they are beacons of light of some sort, i.e. against toxic play. So this kind of makes me more interested in being in one of the dev factions, say Kingdom or Empire. I'm not into toxic play as much, so being in one of these factions kind of sounds like a fun idea for the fact that if they can prevent some of that and make it a little more enjoyable, I think I could like that. Is there diplomacy or hierarchy systems for factions? So factions could be sub-factions, i.e. vessels to each other, likely Empire and Kingdom will have such vessels. I guess that is vessels still. Is this the same? Oh crap, I didn't mean to do it there.
Vassal.
Wow, I need to learn some stuff. Oh god. There you go, we're back. Who knows what all that other stuff was. Vassal. Okay. I was thinking vessel, not like a vessel spaceship, but something like that. To do a lot with proxy wars and such. So that's kind of cool. Will players sided with opposite factions be able to join the same group? Factions aren't forced to opposition. should be fine. We haven't decided that one yet, but I'm kind of keen to exploring the idea that players form their own groups, and that group can pledge to an alliance or kingdom, empire, or stay neutral. Factions are not that rigid. There is more emphasis on social factions. Okay. Can ground guilds clan hold territory? We are planning a territory system, but initial version might be very rudimentary or not at all. So this is kind of, I did want a territory type system, so it sounds like there might not be much of one at all, but I'm assuming once you can build stations, some sort of system would probably start to leak out, for it. But that can also mean that building to space is unlimited and territories can defend with weapons. But yeah, it depends on how that system works. I mean, space is vast and big, so it really, like, how do you do that? How do you code it so well? Like, we'll see how that goes. Not sure how much of that will be rolled out in EA. We have a lot of things built but not slated for EA, so that's kind of cool. Yes, we have plans for claiming space before claiming system. You can just fly your warships to a certain point and tell everyone else to bugger off. So Laurie is the CEO, and both times he said they're planning a territory system. So it's definitely going to happen, apparently, claiming space. Is there potential to be a mercenary? We plan to utilize privateers in warfare, so kind of mercenaries, yes. Are there permissions to restrict or allow my friends to edit my ship? Team is working highly. The team is highly supported. So teamwork is highly supported. Yes, I can't talk anymore. If it's not in the EA launch, it will be eventually. So yes, you'll be able to build ships and stations with your friends and groups. So that's cool. That's important. I wonder if the same interface or something will be like a permission system. So, somebody like your friend can fly your ship in a the safe zone area without like kind of running off and stealing your ship. So it's kind of like, I wonder how that's going to work. Okay. Is there a trade? Yeah, I did read that. Is there a trading currency? Are there NPCs to buy and sell from? Credits and credits is a system, and there are shop terminals. So they call them shop terminals, and I guess they're going to be just terminals, like a computer. In the trailer, we saw like a guy at the bar or something like that, and he looked like an NPC that you would trade with as a terminal, but apparently that's not the case. It's going to be a physical terminal, so that'll be interesting. Will there be an auction house, or will all the transactions be through an NPC vendors? So both are coming. No idea, though, if auction house is up at EA. So it says NPC vendor here. So I had this question, and I saw those NPCs, and I thought, will they consider NPC vendors part of the game? Would they, is this outside of the PvE? And people are telling me on Discord, this is not happening. But this, on the other hand, says otherwise. But then again, maybe it's just going to be a terminal, not an NPC. But it would be kind of cool to talk to an NPC. Is there currency in a physical item that can be dropped or given to players? So we haven't decided on that yet. Transferring physical objects does work at the moment. So you can transfer a physical object, but the currency is not a physical object at this time. Will there be rich economic systems like Star Wars Galaxies or EVE Online? Those are intended, yes. Trading part should be doable, as the war part is what we have been focusing on. So they've talked about this a few, and they want, like, right now there's like infinite like type of resources and things on the mega stations and whatnot, but it sounds like over time they want to turn it into like more finite systems and actually be part of the economy, but they need to like jumpstart the economy itself. So I guess we'll have to see how that goes over time. What determines the cost of an item? So the current iteration of the economy, the mass of the object has great impact on the price, as most of the items and objects found in the game are eventually something the player can craft. That doesn't mean the electronic parts are cheap, just because they tend to be on the smaller side of objects in mass. Most advanced electronics are made out of rare noble metals that have much higher value than the standard industrial metals. Plus, the more advanced electronics have, also attach modifier to them, more difficulty, manufacture process, more expensive. Ship prices are quite broad. The Vazima costs much less than a multi-million frigate. I can't recall the values out of my head off from work at the moment. But by doing the most simplest and worst paying jobs and getting Vazima in 30 to 40 minute job at the moment. Beyond that, it really depends how the player decides to earn money. There will always be possibility to strike gold, so sort of speak, and find valuable minerals from a single enough to finance a complete fighter. So that's cool. So like one resource might be able to buy you a complete fighter. Does a damage model apply to players? Can I shoot off their limbs? So yes, you can. But it doesn't. It's not the same as the voxel stuff, of course. Can I shoot off somebody's leg and then use it to hit somebody with? You're free to try. Smiley. Improvised weaponry at its best. At this time, I don't believe you can do that. There's no way to wield and smack with things, but we have seen picking up items and holding it at least. Can you enslave people and make them fight in a space fighting club? Tasing and taking prisoners sounds like a very Empire thing to do. Not sure if those are supported yet, at least, let alone a space flight club. So, there is a weapon that you can electrocute and stun people with. So that is a feature. Arresting them, probably not so much. Removing their limbs and dragging their body somewhere, probably. But when you give them their limbs, what stops them from trying to like punch a hole through the wall? Plus, can you remove their inventory? I don't know about that either. I don't think anyone's ever actually talked about that. So that might be an interesting one. Can you unload all their weapons so they can't just, use the weapons on you? Can I steal other ships? You can steal a whole ship if it's not a safe zone. Can ships ram other ships and move them in the safe zone? And move them in the safe zone. That's the opposite. You'd think it'd be out of the safe zone. I think we haven't decided all the physics impact details yet in the safe zones, but the zones are quite large, so ramming one out would take a lot of work. But it says, can ships ram other ships and move them in the safe zone? Oh, move them in the safe zone. Okay, never mind. I thought it was move them into the safe zone. Well, but it's saying moving them while they're in the safe zone, I guess. That's my horrible English there. Do ships have player respawn points you can build into them? So we haven't decided which is the minimum for respawn locations, i.e. what size of ship they require. How many players can accrue a big warship? So the biggest warships are pretty useless without a crew. I think the biggest ship briefly seen in the trailer would benefit mostly from a 20 to 40 player crew. A small ship which uses a crew of 5 are pretty efficient against single-minded fighters, but the other hand, 5 fighters working together are also super lethal, so I guess it's all about coordination. Can 2 players work together to carry something heavy? Currently, it's only solo carry. That's kind of adorable to think about. Are there any in-game bulletin notice boards to post information? Yes, definitely something like that, most likely for multiple purposes as well, i.e. a job board, etc. We are currently creating signs which can be programmed, but next logical step is to expand them to other types as well. So that's actually really cool. Okay, so look at this. So on the massively multiplayer, is this a fully dedicated MMO server or something P2P like No Man's Skies? So somewhere in between, hard to explain completely. We have fairly distributed architect with some amounts of P2P involved. So the P2P, so what we've learned is basically you can go near another player and it kind of connects to them. And I actually made an image on this the other day for somebody. It's pretty rudimentary, and it is just to explain to them kind of how it works. But let me go to images here. Of course, my internet's lagging horrible. I'm not even doing anything with my internet, but it's lagging anyway. So it's like, just to go to Imgur is taking this long just to have it load up. Okay, so it's now trying to load up the images. Imgur could be lagging anyways. But basically, the P2P is basically like player to peer-to-peer. That's what it stands for. But it's basically when the players are kind of close by, they can... okay, there we go, and then we can load it. Here you go. There you go. So if you look here, this is the master. Let's zoom in. So the red is the master server. So you can pretend this is like the universe in a sense. So you're in here, you're flying around, And these are two different players, player 1 and player 2. And then when they cross each other, they basically run an instance. One of them might be host, or maybe both of them are hosts. And I'm not quite sure how P2P works in that sense, especially with their netcode, right? So maybe no one is actually a dedicated host like it used to be. But anyways, so when they create their own little area, then the purple, this is the server kind of that they've created between each other, exists, and then it helps to render, like, say, physics and stuff. So when one ship is being blown up and the physics calculations going off, instead of the big red server calculating all that information, instead one of these guys or both of these guys will be calculating that information. That way the dedicated server doesn't lag. And it's sort of a method of how you can kind of, basically offload some of the performance to the clients, and then have the server, used for checking, cheating, storing the data, etc. as well. So kind of works in cooperation quite a bit, but in a very more complex method. And a lot of games use it these days. Some people don't like me saying this for some reason, but Destiny 2, for example, is P2P. Quite different in some ways, but it runs like a mega server kind of a list of people and whatnot, and then they kind of join in a lobby, and it's kind of a P2P after that. Someone in that game is probably hosting it, or multiple people are. It really depends on how it's coded, and yeah, pretty cool stuff. Anyways, thank you guys and girls so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and we'll see you wonderful people next time. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.